Well, hey, you, and welcome back to another episode of the Miss Michaela Mae Show. I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae, and today we have a special episode. My friend Landon is coming on the show, and we are doing a Back to the Future review in honor of the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future. And if you've been in my world for a while, whether it's on the Miss Michaela Mae Show or on my other show, the Western Hippie Podcast, or have just followed me online for a little bit, you've probably gathered that I change my mind a lot. And originally my plan was to put this episode on the Western Hippie Podcast. And today when I was out on my walk, and this is one of the reasons I've made my morning walks a priority, is how much clarity I get on them when I can just go out in the wide open and just clear my mind, is I do, because I've been debating on whether this show is going to be politics or not. And essentially my intention for the show was culture for sure, debating on politics. And as of right now, I am going to start planning on talking about politics. But as they say, politics is downstream from culture. And so both are important. And so again, originally I was going to put this on my Western Hippie Show. And I thought, Michaela, this was why we created the Miss Michaela Mae Show, was to talk about culture and potentially politics, which as of right now, it seems like it will be growing into at some point. And I'm outlining some episodes. And so when Landon and I recorded this episode, I introduced the intro. I used the Western Hippie Podcast. And as I said, I changed my mind. So I wanted to just re-record this intro. Depending on how I said it, I don't know if I'm going to be able to edit out where I said the Western Hippie, which is why we're here. So if you hear the Western Hippie, that is why, because Michaela is still getting clarity on how to run two shows. So without further ado, I am so excited to bring you this episode. If you are new to myself or even Landon and I met in film school, and Landon, the joke is that I almost got kicked out of film school for my lack of movie watching, and Landon has carried the baton post film school. I went to film school to know how to write a script. That was it. And so then Landon has carried the baton post film school, him and his wife both, of getting me into watching movies and getting caught up on movies. And it's been truly a treasure and a gift. And it is also a treasure and a gift for me to bring Landon's genius to you today. So without further ado, let's get into this celebratory episode for the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future. I'm here with my friend Landon today. If you are not new to the show, you've probably heard Landon and I sit down and talk about Top Gun Maverick. That's the one that I always think about because it's one of my favorite episodes that we've done. But we've done other movie reviews on the show. And this week is the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future. So we thought it would be sit down, do a Back to the Future chat. Landon has went and seen Back to the Future this week in theaters. I have not gone to see it yet, but I'm going to. So we just thought that we would sit down, talk about Back to the Future, talk about Landon's experience with Back to the Future, talk about my experience with Back to the Future, and just some of our favorite parts from the film, but also our favorite takeaways from the film, things we've picked up over time. And I'm going to let Landon speak from here, but he also said that as he was rewatching it, him and I chatted a little bit on the phone yesterday before recording this episode, but he was saying there were things about the script that he just realized that he hadn't really realized before. So without further ado, Landon, do you want to take her away?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's always fun to talk about movies, especially ones that I've grew up with or have seen a bunch of times. But yeah, me and my wife went to see the 40th anniversary in IMAX on Saturday, and it was just a great time. I don't think I've seen that movie in the movie theaters before. I can't remember if maybe I did in LA, but I don't think I did. But it was definitely like seeing it for the first time, and watching it with an audience is always fun and on a big screen and everything. But it's just, it really is one of the best movies, I think, especially for just being a popcorn movie, an 80s popcorn movie that resonates with, a really wide audience, but is still really good and really well written and well casted. And yeah, it really is one of like the great movies that Hollywood's ever made. And it's crazy it's 40. When I saw it, it was probably you know, 10 years old maybe when I first saw it, because it came out, 5 years before I was born, but it was always around, in my world. Um, but yeah, I was telling you, I had seen it before when I was a kid, but when we went to Universal Studios in '98 or something like that, we got the 3-pack VHS trilogy, and we went on the ride and all that. So that really was what made us like a fan of the series. You know, we watched those VHS tapes all the time, and we upgraded the DVDs and the Blu-ray and the 4K. So it's been like a journey, and it's crazy to think that it's 40 years old. It's nuts. And so your first experience was last year
Mm-hmm.
when I introduced you to the series.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. And, it's interesting just as you were talking, I'm trying to remember when I think I even heard of the movies for the first time because it was never a movie that, like, my parents didn't even own the movie. So I'm trying to think of even the first time I heard about it because I'd heard about it once or twice before, but when the actual movie really sticks out in my brain was Landon and I went to film school together, and during our film school orientation, we got to eat where the clock tower is on the Universal backlot. So I think that was really my first, like, what is this Back to the Future movie?
Hmm.
I kind of think the only other time I'd heard of it was I had dated someone who liked the movie, and I remember he had mentioned it. And so it was kind of cool to be going on this set. I think I had seen the set doing the Universal Tram tour once before because, you drive by it and they explain it. But that
Hmm.
was my first introduction to it, which would have been in memory. It would have been about 2015. And then, yeah, I didn't watch it until 2024 with you and Christina. And it was one of those like, and we've talked about this, you don't really realize how much your parents influence you, but they'd always just said like, oh, those 80s movies are dumb or they're corny, they're not a waste of your time. And I just remember sitting, Landon has a really just cool movie room with a, I mean, you've got it decked out. I mean, it's just so
Yeah.
awesome. So it's awesome that I got to watch it with you and Christina in there. And I remember it, like, we finished it. Did we watch didn't we watch one and two back to back? Because I was like, I can't finish. This is awesome. Like, we can't be done. This is awesome. And it was just like so much more heartwarming than I expected.
Yeah.
And from hearing about it from my parents, I honestly just thought like, oh, this movie's going to be corny. It's going to be dumb. Like, what do you mean we're going back to the future?
Right.
And then I watched it and I just like, I fell in love with it. I'm so thankful that we had that 80s movie week and night
Hmm.
because since then, as I do, I've probably watched them 50 times because I fell in love with Doc Brown, and Marty is just so perfect. But then even as when we were kind of talking, prepping for this episode yesterday, like the thought of a son going back to help a dad land his own
Yeah.
mom is just such an interesting concept.
Yeah, it's interesting to grow up with the movies because when you're a kid, you're just all about the action and the spectacle of it. You don't have any concept of, like, I don't think I really thought about like he's going back in time and talking to his parents in high school. It's something that probably didn't occur to me really until I was in high school maybe. And then thinking
Mm.
like, oh, I wonder what my dad would be like in high school or what my mom would be like in high school. And then you get older, now I'm in my 30s, and it's just the perspective of the dad. Like, he doesn't even realize, like, this guy helping him is his son from the future. And then, you got to think, like, after all of this, do they ever have that discussion?
Yeah.
Like they're like, hey, that was obviously you 30 years ago.
A cool like mirror moment for me is when they're, I think it's the scene where they're out front of George's house and George is like hanging the clothes up on the
Hmm.
clothesline, and Marty says, George, and it's so beautiful because I believe it's originally Doc that says this to Marty. He says, you can, if you put your mind to it, you can achieve anything. But then at the end of the movie when they're opening George's
Right.
book, George repeats that saying, and it was just so beautiful, like how
Yeah,
that.
because George is such a weakling that Doc was the real father figure for Marty, and then Marty was using things that he learned from Doc for to his own dad, and yeah, then that became it really interesting.
Hmm. So you and Christina both had mentioned this, but it was only after I watched the film for the first time. So I actually wanted to ask you about it again today. And you might have to correct me if I'm not recalling it perfectly because it's been over a year since you
Hmm.
guys told this to me, but um something about there's a theory the reason Doc and Marty at the beginning were so close was because they had this like experience together. Obviously they didn't know it yet at the beginning of the movie, but that bond was kind of because they were friends in
Yeah,
time,
there's
if you will.
if you go into like the whole time dynamic thing, yeah, it could be like Marty was always supposed to go back, and that's yeah where he meets Doc, and then yeah, I don't. One thing that I think might be like a plot hole or something. I know there's probably a bunch of plot holes because it's a time travel movie, but the fact that Marty's life or his home life is different when he gets back,
Mm.
and you think like maybe in this timeline, like George stood up to Biff, but maybe originally he didn't. It went a different way. I don't know, but it's one of those things where it is interesting that he did change like how his family turns out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't come back and it's the same.
Hmm. I love that because that's been, you and I kind of have a different way of building our relationship with movies, if you will. Because, like I've told you, the first time I watch it, I'm just kind of falling in love with the characters. The second time, I'm starting to pick up more on the messages. And then by the third or fourth time, then I'm looking more at the technical, like the editing, the cameras, and stuff like that. But then I keep watching it to like pull on the messages. And that's actually one of my favorite message in the movie. So even if it's a pothole, I don't really care because it
Hmm.
is the fact that we can make one decision and it can completely change like the timeline of our lives, that it can change so much that Biff goes from being George's boss to like George being Biff's boss, all because George had that one moment where he stood up to Biff, believed in himself, and just knocked him
Right.
out like cold. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always depressing when I revisit these 80s movies or movies
Mm.
from my childhood because you realize like how far we are from having movies like this now.
Mm.
um it's like there's nothing that even comes close to the greatness of what was being done in the 80s and up to the 90s and early 2000s is you know but this movie also a lot of special effects but before computers, so it's all that original. Some of it might not hold up as well, but there's such a nostalgic feel to it. And when you realize that every effect you're seeing was done by somebody's hands, whether it was double exposing film to add lightning effects
Mm.
or whatever, like, even if something looks old and dated now, I'm still like blown away by what they were able to achieve back then without just, as a guy sitting at a computer and and that was there's something special about that time
Mm.
in the 80s specifically, the post Star Wars effects, and also the music is just the score is so good, and hearing it in IMAX is just like the best. It's one of the great scores.
If you don't mind, I did want to loop back around. For someone that doesn't know what a popcorn movie is, do you mind explaining what a popcorn movie is?
Yeah, to me a popcorn movie is like comes out usually in the summer, especially in the 80s. You had Indiana Jones. They were just like you go with the whole family, you see them multiple times, and you have a great time the whole 2 hour runtime, and it just becomes like a staple of that summer.
Mm.
And the great ones are ones like Back to the Future that or Indiana Jones or Star Wars that just 40 years goes by and people new generations are just picking it up and just carrying it. Like these movies will be talked about forever. That's how good they are. But yeah, popcorn movie is I'm trying to think of like like the event, the Marvel movies, popcorn movies
Mm,
for our times now,
okay. Yeah.
or Disney movies. But in the '80s, like especially when like Back to the Future, you can have a popcorn movie, but that also is written well and is a great movie. Like it has a great script and everything comes together, so it really transcends just being a popcorn movie. But yeah, we were watching this series on YouTube. It goes through all every year of the '80s and all the movies that came out.
Hmm.
It's just every episode at 81, 82, 83, you're just like, oh my, people were so spoiled. These classic movies were coming out week after week, and it was just like movies that are still talked about to this day. And I'm just like, man, like Gen X and Boomers had it made. They were just, and that's why people went to the movies, and they went multiple times, and they watched great movies. It's crazy.
What, if you had to try to sum it down into a sentence, what do you think made Back to the Future stand the test of time that we're still talking about it 40 days later or 40 years later, 40 days, 40 years later, and it didn't just like stay back in the 80s?
I think it was a hit because of you see a lot of time travel stuff now, and a lot of it steals from Back to the Future. But at the time when it
Mm,
came out, the time travel gimmick was not something that was mainstream at all. And it just
mm,
was so interesting. I think it was, the DeLorean and the young, cool teenager, Michael J. Fox, was just a great lead. And it just hit everything right for the time and everything. And, but I think it stands the test of time. Again, it didn't just die in the '80s because it's it's a family story, and I think everybody can just resonate with some aspect of how it's presented. Like when I was a teenager, I remember feeling like Marty. You know, some sometimes you don't feel like you're 100% like on the same page as your family. You know, and yeah, there's just something about it. They just hit everything right at the right time, and it just transcends anything, and it's just relevant. It'll always be relevant. I think just that like American feel to it, just the American family, suburban family, not understanding your parents, and then he goes back and he sees his parents at his age, and yeah, there's just something about it. I think we all, when we watch it, we're all thinking the same things, and we're
mm,
comparing, and every time I watch it, I'm always thinking about my family and what I would do in this situation and how interesting it would be.
mm.
So I think that's what it is, because
Yeah.
it, and then going into the second one, like I always liked the second one when I was a kid because of the futuristic
Mm,
elements to it. And then back in when we would watch it in the '90s, it felt like that could be a realistic 2025 or 2015. But then obviously, as years have gone by, that one hasn't really. Now that we're past 10 years past
uh-huh.
2015, you're like, okay, we don't have flying cars. It doesn't still feel like the '80s. Um, but now I love the second one when he goes back to the '50s again in the third act of the second one.
Mhm.
And again, talking about gimmicks, like that was a gimmick that was used in the Avengers Endgame, where they go back to the previous movies and they have to fix
Mm,
things. But
yeah.
at the time, that was such
Yeah.
the first movie's like it's so revolutionary that you have like this time traveling teenager, and then the second one's like, oh, what if he had to go back to that time, and there's two of him running around, and he has to stop these guys from ruining that, and then it's just so fun. The movies are so fun.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Before we fully dive into two, if someone out there doesn't know, Michael Fox was not originally cast for
Right.
Marty. So do you mind just telling us the behind the scenes on
Yeah,
that?
I didn't know this until I think the when the Blu-ray came out back in 2011. They had a whole thing on it.
Mm,
They wrote it for Michael J. Fox. He was just the big. He was just like the guy for
mm,
like a teenager that just has the charisma and everything. but he was so busy. He was on a TV sitcom. I think Family Matters was what it was called.
Mm.
Um, and he just couldn't fit it in his schedule. And so they hired another young coming up actor named Eric Stoltz, who you might not know his name, but you probably recognize him if you saw him. He wasn't as big as like Michael J. Fox or anything, but so they started shooting the movie with him, and there's pictures and I think there's some clips of him you can see. Um, which is so when I first saw it, I was like, what? Like how
Yeah.
this is actually happening? Like how did we not know about this? And they shot I think for like 3 weeks with him. Like a majority of the movie was shot with him, and the director would go. They go back then. You did dailies. You had to see all the film, make sure all the film was right that you shot. And they were just like, this isn't working. Like Eric Stoltz was taking it too seriously. He didn't have that Michael J. Fox magic where he's
Mm.
taking it seriously, but he's also having fun with it. Eric Stoltz was like very much like it was like, oh my god, I'm stuck in the past. Like I'm like this is a he just didn't get the tone that they were going for, and they had to make the
Mm.
decision to fire him. And they were able to work something out with Michael J. Fox where he was literally working all day on the sitcom, getting in a car, working nights on Back to the Future, driving back, sleeping like for 30 minutes the car ride, loading up on coffee, doing the sitcom, and it's crazy. There's a whole documentary about it.
Wow.
And every time I watch the movie, I'm kind of like, oh man, he looks tired here. And there's some scenes where he's supposed to be tired, and you're just like, man, he looks tired there. And it's just the fact that he still made this iconic performance and character is just it's just a
Yeah.
testament to how good he was. And Eric Stoltz obviously got screwed, but I'm sure he knows, it just wasn't a right fit. And
Hmm.
I'm sure he must have had a cool experience working on the movie and being part of it, even though it didn't work out. And would it have launched his career? Like, who knows? Would the movie have worked as well? Would it even be as a big hit? Would we be talking about it right now? I don't know. Like, it's one of those things you just don't know. It's interesting.
That was one of the interesting things that you told me was, would if he would have ended up playing Marty, would that movie have stayed in the 80s?
Yeah, it's
And
very
that's
possible that it would have been just a little cult classic that
mm-hmm.
some people know about, some people love, but the phenomenon that it turned into and the everyone loves Back to the Future. I mean, it's very rare you find someone that doesn't like it or hasn't seen it. And in your case, I'm showing it to you
Took me
because
a
you have
while.
to see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's and it's really a testament to, like Robert Zemeckis, who directed and I believe co-wrote Back to the Future. He's one of those genius, at least at the time. Now he's older and his stuff isn't as doesn't hit as hard, but like his just tenacity, like real director, knew what he wanted, knew it worked, had to make that difficult decision to do that for the better part for the movie. And he also went on to do Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
Oh, okay.
which is
Yeah.
also a technical marvel. I mean, the way they did it back then with the hand
Mm.
drawn characters in the real world, it's just we can do a whole podcast on that as well, if we wanted to. But then he went on to do Forrest Gump. Like he was one of the
Oh, wow.
pioneers in digital effects in movies that led us to like this state that we're in now. But
Mm.
like him, Spielberg, Lucas, James Cameron, those guys were pushing visual effects in movies.
I think even for me, what I love about it is, the first probably two times I watched it, I was waiting almost for them to mess up. And that's what's so just amazing to me, like how well they really wrote in that these characters from the 50s have no idea what people
Yeah,
from the eight, like even just, Lorraine calling Marty Calvin Klein, like it's just a little sprinkle in that's
yeah.
just awesome.
All the dialogue when he goes back is so great. I mean,
Uh-huh.
and they're from that era, so you know, like they lived in the 50s, whether they grew up in the 50s or whatever. Like
Mhm.
the Marty's grandparents were their parents. So that's interesting too, because it's so different now. 30 years ago now is the 90s. The world hasn't changed that much, but
Shush.
the 50s to the 80s is a whole different world. It's really crazy.
Yeah, even the TV scene, right? Like nobody
Yeah,
has two
right.
TVs, and even in the 80s you'd have multiple, and then now it's like there's a TV in every room.
Yeah, exactly.
What's a rerun?
What's a rerun? Yeah, and then
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan, the whole Ronald Reagan bit.
Oh my gosh, that is one of my so long, future boy. Like
Yeah,
I just
it's just
I
so. It's just it's one of those things like in the marriage of the '80s, where you can say the '80s was when um, the modern world kind of was blossoming. Right, we're still kind of
uh,
living in this. We have different technology and stuff, but what the '80s was
mhm.
is like the beginning of the modern world, and the '50s was kind of the end of the old world, or whatever. But yeah, those 30 years, those two time periods clashing is just so perfect, and it just feels so right. Like even if
Yeah.
like, we have no connection to the '50s, but you just understand it, and the way they
Uh-huh.
present it is so good. All the old cars and the costumes and everything. And I think that's another reason why it resonated not just with kids but with older people, because
Mm.
older people would take their kids and they'd be like, "Oh, that's my time period. Like that's my childhood." And it's
And
just
and like and now you can see what I lived through and what the
yeah,
difference is. Even my dad and I were talking today because my dad was born in 48 and he freaks out over just like really random things. And today I finally decided to ask him about it. I'm like, why are you freaked out if like an electric blanket is plugged into the outlet, but not a microwave? And
right.
it was more like if multiple things are plugged into an outlet, it was too much on the outlet and it would cause a fire. Like that was
Mm,
a very common thing. I was like,
right.
oh, I'm not used to that because that's not a
Which is,
problem we
if you ever
deal
seen A
with.
Christmas Story, one of my favorite movies, like not even favorite Christmas movie, one of my favorite movies is
Mm,
A Christmas Story, and it
mhm.
takes place, I think, in the '40s, like early '40s.
Okay.
And yeah, I, I'm sure that was the filmmaker's childhood era, or at least around that time. Anyway, yeah, they have scenes like that where there's all these things plugged into one thing and it sparks and does all these things.
Oh,
So
interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that I picked up rewatching Back to the Future, probably this is probably my third or fourth watch because the first time you're just trying to catch things, but I loved even how Ronald Reagan's name was on the marquee board in the 50s.
right,
And so I just loved
yeah,
that little foreshadow because the scene with Doc and Marty in the 50s when Marty finds Doc for the first time and they're doing the like
hmm,
thought reading thing. That is probably my favorite scene in the movie. And it's because of, when he says, "So long, future boy," and he's like, "Doc, the bruise you have on your head."
yeah,
And it was just that moment of like, you cannot deny this guy is from the future at
yeah,
this point. And that's just my favorite. And like, because the look on Doc's face when he opens the garage, it's just, I mean, if I have that TV on or the movie on just for background noise and that scene's on, I'm stopping and watching it because just the look on Doc's,
yeah,
and even Doc, like, and that's what's really beautiful too. And I haven't really thought about it till this point, but Marty even gets Doc to believe in himself in a new way because he takes him to the
right,
DeLorean and says, like, "Oh, I finally invented something that works."
yeah,
And he even says, like, "You've given me so much to look forward to." I haven't really thought about Marty kind of giving Doc's advice back to Doc too. I've thought
yeah.
about it with
It's a
George.
whole,
Yeah.
but yeah, when you see Doc in the '50s is a very like not sure of himself guy, but Doc in the '80s is very like, no, it's gonna work. Like I did this. It's like we're the dog's fine. Like
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Yeah, and seeing the two sides to that character.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's one of those movies. It's one of a kind. It's just it can't be replicated. It can't be recreated. Everything just worked.
It did, and I've told you before, but Doc and I have a very, for
Hmm.
better or for worse, have a very similar sense of humor, and just like even playing on the slang and the heavy thing. I just
Yeah,
love it. And he's like, "Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there something wrong with the Earth's gravitational pull?" And it's just like, my sister gives me crap for being naive all the time,
yeah.
and that's something like if I was Doc, that's I mean, and
Well,
obviously
no,
it's slang,
I
but
love the build
you
up
know,
to it because he says it
yes,
like a few times, and he's always like, "What are you talking about?" And then finally he asks him like, "Why are things so heavy in the future?" Like what?
heavy,
And
heavy
Marty's
weight.
just like, what are you talking about?" Like he doesn't even realize he's saying it probably.
Yeah, because they're
And
walking into the school and he
yeah,
says, "That's heavy, Doc." And he's like, "Wait, heavy?
yeah,
Weight's got nothing to do with it."
yeah. It's like a buildup of like,
Uh-huh.
why do you keep saying that?
Yeah, like, and to Marty, it would be like us
Yeah,
saying one of our common
right.
catchphrases, like, "Wait,
He doesn't
what?
even
You don't
react
know
to it.
that?
He just goes, "What?" Like, what?
Huh? Yeah, yeah. Okay, so kind of wrapping that up and going into, if we go to dive deeper into the second one, what do you think? The futuristic stuff is cool, but there is like a magic to the second one that even the first one doesn't have. Like the first one is definitely my favorite just because, it sets because you can't have the second without the first. And there's just
Yeah.
this like
Well, the
nostalgia.
first
But
one stands on its own. Like
yeah,
you could just, oh, they fly off and like, what's gonna happen next? But the second one is a great sequel. It's one of the great sequels
yeah.
ever. I mean, it's the fact that they were able to do something again, the same like pacing and structure, but with different problem and a different time period and going back to the first movie. And I mean, it's a great sequel. Like got it. And then the movies, first one's so good, you have to watch the second one because it's like,
Mhm.
I want more.
Yeah. What do
Do we
you
want to talk about the third one?
Yeah, we do. I'm just trying to think, like, there's a little more to the second that I want to talk about because it's kind of interesting because I'm thinking of like what's Doc's journey in the second one and Marty's journey in the second, like compared to the first, because they're on a similar journey, but it seems like they're the character themselves. When we talk about the character arc, they are learning different things between movie one and movie two.
Yeah, the second one deals with the future. First one deals with the past. And I do like they definitely probably took so many notes like what do you do if you go back in time, what do you do? And then the second one deals with greed, like oh I would buy a sports book and bet on all the games and be rich. And then
Mm,
it seems like a great idea, right? And then how that backfires and turns into a whole thing.
yeah. Well, and even this is why, and we can bring the third one in at this point, because this is why I have a hard time with the third one. The actual, I would say, like act one to act 2A of the third one, I actually love. Like in that scene where they're back in Doc's house and Doc has, woke back up and he thinks he had this crazy dream about the future boy coming back and then Marty's in the house and he trips on
Yeah.
that floater skateboard thing or whatever and is in the bathroom and he's like, "Oh, if you're so smart, who told you I was in the past?" And he's like, "You did." And he's reading his own and Doc is even kind of discovering he's a little softer and he's because he couldn't believe he wrote a letter like that, to Marty and um but I'm kind of thinking of just the Marty character too, because he kind of ends up going on a similar journey as George. When we go to the second movie, he's kind of a character
Yeah.
that's not a great dude.
Yeah, he
You
has
know?
the accident and his life was ruined. Like he wanted to be a rock star, he
Yeah.
had all these dreams, and then yeah, that's another great aspect of the second one, right? Is your future not turning out the way you planned,
Yeah.
and which is something that resonates with me as I get older, right? When as a kid, you're just like, what's his problem?
Well, and it's interesting. I haven't really thought about it this way either, but the first one plays on George being too weak, and the
Mhm.
second one kind of plays on Marty being almost too aggressive. Like, almost, you can call
Right.
him a chicken, and it just sets him off. And so it's like George kind of had to learn to be a little bit more like Marty, but in the second one, Marty's almost kind of learning to be a little
Yeah.
more like George.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. His temper, and that's something they play with in the second one, right?
Chicken.
And that's what led to his car accident, and that's what he messes up a few times because of it. So yeah, he has to like learn from that.
You know what that scene, and this is technically at the end of the third one where they reveal he would have got into the car wreck. And I don't
Mhm.
know because I don't remember. The scene reminds me in Stand By Me when Ace, which is Sutherland's character, is because it's the same black car. They're both in a black car. And um I've I haven't really thought about, but I wonder if one of them kind of piggybacked off the other because it's the same.
Maybe. Yeah, I think Stand By Me was 87
Was it?
and Back to the Future 3 would came out in 90. So yeah, only a couple years
Couple of
removed.
years. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of I kind of want to talk about Biff's character in
Mhm.
2 versus
Well,
yeah.
that's one thing I'll say. The most underrated thing about these movies is that character and the actor of Biff.
Mm.
I don't think he
Mhm.
gets enough credit because he was just like great bully in the first one, but in the second one he played like the old version,
Yeah,
the young version. And the third one he was like Mad Dog Tannen, and it was just the guy's like the range on him was so underappreciated,
that's true.
and he really makes he's a great villain, for the series. He really makes those movies. Even in the ride, I think I showed you the footage of the ride.
Mm-hmm. You
He
did.
that actor was Biff, and he was running around the when you're in the queue. It's kind of like you're in Doc Brown's lab or whatever, and you're getting ready to test out the time machine. That's the story of the ride. And they got the actor of Biff to be like running around, just like causing trouble.
Oh,
And
that's
it's like
cool.
security
Yeah.
cam footage. It's like really good.
Uh-huh.
And then he gets one of the time machines, and then the story is you get in one and go after him. And he's just like great in it. Like it's like a little bonus Back to the Future movie with Biff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just even to see like kind of the insecurity of the character because every great villain has their villain origin story too,
Right.
and it's like Biff loving this girl so much, and it's kind of interesting because Biff clearly has mommy issues because
Uh
he
huh.
lives with grandma, like
Yeah.
we
But
know.
I love that in the second one because they show us like something we didn't see in the first one. Him
Hmm.
going to the dance, like, and then you see Biff's perspective. Yeah, and his grandma's horrible to him, and you do get a sense of like his home life, and it's not good. Uh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
So it kind of, makes sense of why, this claim to fame and power,
Yeah,
just for him to get the girl, but then obviously it reveals he had to kill George even to get the girl and it basically keeps Lorraine by providing for her kids. I mean, that's really
yeah,
so you kind of see the villain origin and how the boy becomes the man, if you will, which is
yeah. And them messing with time, causes all this problems. And
what do you think about what's interesting to me too is the relationship between Griff and Biff because Griff walks all over Biff too in the second one.
oh, the grandson.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's a whole probably movie there, right? About the
Hmm.
we don't even know Biff's kids are. I just know his grandkid,
Hmm.
Griff.
Griff, yeah, which is oh, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, he plays. Yeah, he plays. I forgot about that. He plays Griff. He plays Biff. He plays Old Biff. He plays Mad Dog Tannen. He plays like the Donald Trump crazy Biff in the second one, but he also plays like the
Yeah.
loser. He plays two versions of
Hmm.
the original Biff is just like giving George shit, and then the weak Biff that's waxing the car. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many like different versions of the same character that guy plays, and it's you forget it's the same guy. Sometimes you're just like invested in it.
Thank you for pointing that out because I actually don't think until you said
You don't
something
really think
today.
about it.
No, how much? Because I totally buy that Biff at the beginning of Back to the first Back to the Future and Biff at the end, because he turns into this, feeble man of
Yeah,
like, I was just putting the second coat on.
yeah.
Like,
It's not just his voice acting. It's his body is different in every one of these
yeah.
characters. Like he's
Uh-huh.
really underappreciated, that guy, and his career never
Totally.
really did anything after Back to the Future,
Mm.
which is a shame. And he's a comedian. He has some funny like songs about you know Back to the Future and stuff in his act, but he really is the MVP of the movies. And I think because Marty and Doc are so good, he
Yeah.
kind of gets overshadowed because he's the villain, but he's really good in those movies.
That's the other thing that I love about these movies is when we talk about like having connections and relationships in a movie. So many people are a sucker for, they'd want to see more of the Jennifer and Marty like timeline kind of fleshed out potentially, but I just love the relationship between Doc and Marty
Yeah, I
and
mean
the friendship.
that's the movie, right?
Yeah.
It's like Jennifer's always kind of the thing we need to get back to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, and I think maybe part of it is they had to recast her in the second one, which I again something I didn't realize until I was older,
Yeah.
because unfortunately Jennifer is not that important much in
Yeah.
that important of a character, so you're kind of just like whatever. but
Hmm.
but yeah, no, that's a thing that they were smart about back then. They were like, does the audience care about this relationship really? Except for the extent of that, like they need. She's kind of like a plot device just to get things, to get the stakes up or whatever. But yeah, the movie is Marty and Doc, and having to deal with one of Biff's descendants or relatives in Hill Valley, California.
Some flavor of Biff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Biff, Griff, or Mad Dog.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, speaking of that, I think where the third one kind of doesn't succeed is giving Doc like a love story, because it's like,
Mm.
it starts out good, but and it's obviously interesting that it's like a western and it's the beginning of Hill Valley, because Hill Valley is such a big part of the movies.
Yeah.
But it just gets slogged down with the love story and Mary Steenburgen, and it's just like, yeah, I think they kind of like, I get it. They wanted to give Doc, you know, but it's just that's the part of that movie that loses me every time I watch it.
I don't love how hard Doc is being on himself about creating the time machine too. Like there's something about that like when they're riding horses back and he's like kind of sly. He's like, I should have never created
Yeah,
that time. Like there's something about that almost, it's like you're trying to pull the magic. I get that there's bad things about it, but I don't
yeah,
know why, but that I don't love that.
yeah, and also just Doc in that movie is, he's so different than the Doc that we love.
Mm.
And it's the weakest one. I mean, no one's gonna. I think that's universally, you know, agreed on.
When does it start to fall apart for you? Because like if I had to pin it, I right
It's
when
when she's like when they save her from going off the cliff.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's what it's like. I don't think I like this movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say because even when he rescue, when Mad Dog is like dragging Marty and trying to hang him, and like Doc come, like I
Yeah,
do love,
that stuff is
yeah,
Back to the Future. That's the DNA of it. And then the second half of the movie just goes boring Western love story, and it's like, okay,
this is probably like the corny part of me talking, but that's all right. Like the weird thing is I don't mind how it ends. Like when Doc says it means the future still being written and kind of goes on this about you can decide. Like I do kind of like that of the just kind of wrapping it up. But yeah, there is them rolling up on the steam engine and yeah, no, it's just
well, what's interesting to because I'm always obsessing over film decades,
mm,
and like Back to the Future is right in the middle, 85, and Back to the Future 3 is the start of the 90s, and it's like,
mm,
you know, there's something to that. There's something about the 80s when they couldn't just do whatever they wanted like you do now. They can just do whatever they want on the computer now, whatever
mm,
idea that they think up, and it loses all like magic. Like, we know how you did it. You did it on a computer.
yeah.
But these 80s movies, they had these big dreams, and they had to kind of condense it into what they could achieve, and that's what gave us such like great creative things.
Mm.
And I think we're at a time now where it's like, oh yeah, there's that thing we can do a giant dragon flying around and like look at I don't know if are you familiar with Ready Player One?
I
Do
haven't
you know what it
watched
is?
it, but
But you know what it is.
I
You
know
know
the
what it
movie.
is.
It's on your Movies Anywhere, and I've seen like the.
Yeah, it's a good example because the whole point of the book before it was a movie, it was a book. The whole point of it was like Willy Wonka, but in the virtual video game world,
Mm,
and everything is nostalgia from the '80s, and the
mm,
DeLorean's in it. That's like his car in the game. And but
mm,
the point I'm getting to is like there's all these visual effects that are good visual effects, and there's some fun scenes that are done well. And there's this like big battle with all these characters that you recognize kind of fighting each other, but you're just kind of sitting there like, okay, like it's not like that movie was supposed to be the return of the '80s pop movie, and it was a
mm,
disappointment. And the effects were crazy; they could do whatever they want, but there was no like magic to it.
mm-hmm.
It just felt very empty and hollow, like empty calories. But trying to like remember this, remember that, and we're like, yeah, we know.
I was actually thinking about this concept a couple of days ago because I love watching Shark Tank, and there was a guy on Shark Tank that he invented a stroller, but the stroller on the back was an elliptical. So like you could
Oh,
yeah, it whatever. Well, he had dumped basically the reason he didn't get a shark was he had dumped so much money into this thing. Like it was going to take like I want to say it was something crazy like $2 million. And the guy was from Brazil. When he moved to the States, he had nothing and he built a real estate empire. Well, now he had all this money, and the shark Damon told him, your problem is actually that you have money because since you
mm-hmm.
have money, you lost your creativity. Because
Yep,
when you have no money, you have to get creative and you have to come up with these nuanced ways. He's like you did the guy. I mean, when he moved to the States, the floor he was sleeping on, like he'd have cockroaches crawling over him, so the creativity he had to use to get out of that was not the
yep,
same creativity he used to create this like bike elliptical thing. And that's always just stuck with me when I've thought about these movies is sometimes a bigger budget's not always a good thing, or the access to all the CGI is always a good
yeah.
thing,
Because
you know.
I don't think the ideas changed from 40 years ago to now. It's just the ability to achieve them exactly how it's in your head, and they knew like, oh, we have this much special effects budget, we have these many shots we can do, so the story better be good for the rest of the movie, and the cheapest thing to do is to write characters and shoot people talking. And
Yeah.
Back to the Future is a great point about, yes, we think about the special effects and all that, but how much? There's probably like 20 minutes, maybe less, of special effects in the actual movie. Most
Mm,
of it's people talking and characters that are written, and that's why it's so good. Because Ready Player One, the worst part of that movie is the human characters are terrible and the actors stink, and every time you
mm,
see them, you're like, I wish I was looking at the special effects because it's better than this, but the real characters suck so much that it makes the movie hollow and forgettable ultimately.
mm.
I mean, because that was directed by Spielberg.
Yeah, that's a really good point because honestly, when I think of Back to the Future, I don't think about the special effects. I think of the characters.
That's what gets you coming back. We have
Yeah.
movies that come out every weekend that have some kind of visual effects, and nobody talks about them because the characters suck and the story sucks, and we don't care about special effects. We've seen them. 30 years, 30 plus years of CGI in movies. We're over it. Like people want to feel something. Like when I was telling you, when I as I get older, when George stands up to Biff and Biff says just leave, and he says no, Biff, you leave her. Like I literally get emotional. I'm
Mm.
like this, and it's like this is like the movie. Like and then when he embraces Lorraine, the other guy cuts in, and he pushes that guy off, and they embrace. I'm like, I love this. This is the stakes, and we did it. Like, and then yeah, we're gonna end with the car going back to the future. Hell yeah! But like, the emotional things make keeps us coming back and keeps us talking about it for 40 years.
Mhm.
Not just there's a ton of movies in the '80s where they had cool special effects and shitty story, and no one talks about those movies.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah. Why do you think that scene makes you so emotional?
I don't know. I'm sure deep down, I feel like George sometimes.
Mm.
The way he was in high school, I think that reminds me of myself. Yeah, that's definitely. And to just have the, you wish you could stand up to a bully and get the girl, right? I mean, like that's you daydream about that as a middle schooler or whatever. And I just, yeah, I love it. He could have just been a pussy and walked away, you know, but he didn't. And I don't know, just it's just as I get older, I just love that scene so much. And the
Well, and
fact that Marty saw his dad do it, and when he comes around the corner and he's thinking like he has to save his dad, and then he sees his dad do it, and he's like, yeah, like he did it. Like watching your dad get your mom, like I don't know, it just
mm,
I love that scene.
yeah.
It's incredible.
Well, I think that's the no, thank you for explaining that because I think I haven't thought about that way, like watching your dad get your mom. Like I
Yeah,
haven't really thought about that way. Yeah.
like watching your dad because the whole time he was failing, right? To get his mom wouldn't even look at him,
Yeah.
and just to watch, you see her eyes like looking up at him, and for
Uh-huh.
Marty to like witness it, right? And then he has to go do whatever he has to go do. But yeah, it's just like it works. It was just it's good. And again, that's just people. That's just old school movie making. We're just shooting people, acting, and and it's the best, probably the best scene in the movie for me.
Well, and he even expresses that, when he finally gets back to Doc, he's like, "You should have seen the old man
Yeah,
knocked, but like didn't know he had it in him, knocked Biff out in one punch." Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
yeah. Well, because it might, for me, if I'm like trying to put myself in Marty's shoes, that would be hard knowing that because George is so feeble at the beginning of the movie, knowing your dad has something in him and
yeah.
not
Well, yeah.
bringing it
Well,
out. And
there's the whole thing like he doesn't have respect for his dad because
yeah.
he watches everyone walk all over him. Like that's and then him earning his dad's respect like is crazy. It's just the writer must have had a similar relationship with his dad, right? I think so. There's a funny story. Bob
Mhm.
Gale, who is the real writer, the creator of everything, and
Yeah.
he's the reason why we haven't had any sequels or remakes because he's like, as long as I'm alive, it's not happening.
Mhm.
He said he was at his parents' house looking through their old high school yearbook, and he saw that his dad was like the president of, or like the president of the school or something, and he had no idea.
Mhm.
And he just thought like, what would it be like to go back and meet your parents like when they were your age? Would we be friends? Like, what would that be like? And that was like the catalyst of the whole movie. And it's interesting. To,
You know what else, like, just as we're talking, that I think this movie hits on is something that we almost try to avoid now, like, not even just in movies, but in our culture, that there is this very primitive part about us, and that we do have certain relationships with our parents that we desire, or like,
mm-hmm.
we do want to see our dad be the strong man. We do want to see our mom
Yeah,
not be the alcoholic man of
right.
the house and be the woman of the house.
Yeah,
Like, but now if you say that, it's like, well, you're sexist, you're home. But this movie, it's like, no, I think we
yeah.
all
Because
actually just
we
have.
meet his family. It's probably a
Mhm.
pretty typical like '80s family. Like his mom's a drunk, his dad is not present. Like,
Yeah.
and Marty has no respect for them. And then to get the opportunity to go and fix your parents, like it's like the ultimate daydream.
And even the change in Lorraine by how George changed, she's a drunk, but she's also like she lies a lot. She's like, I've
Yeah.
never sat in a parked car
Yeah,
with
his
a
a
boy.
dad's a creepy weirdo. His
Yeah.
mom is like a lying like borderline sex freak.
Uh,
And just by changing how they see each other cuz the original idea is like George got hit by the car that her dad was driving and then she felt bad for him and then they kind of were in this fake kind of a relationship that they were kind of just stuck in,
Yeah.
and she never had probably real respect for him, and he
Hmm.
just, you know, but Marty was able to fix things where she like he stands up to Biff, and she like has respect for him, and he has respect for himself, and then they go on to have this, great marriage.
I just love the Jesus, you drink too, or you
Yeah.
smoke too? Like, Marty,
Yeah,
you're
because
starting to sound like my mother.
yeah, because she's all telling him in the beginning, like, I never sat in a parked car with a boy or kissed a boy.
Yeah. Yeah. And then to the end where he's, because he's at the beginning of the movie, he's like lying about his plans with Jennifer, where at
Yeah,
the end she knows about it, but then the sister has like, who
yeah,
called, Greg or Craig?
yeah,
Well, who was it? Greg, the brother's got a suit on, and
yeah.
and it's just even how the dynamic of the kids in their relationships, how it changed. But yeah, no, it's a powerful movie.
It really is. I think again, your parents, they had, what's funny is they were around, they were adults when it came out, but to them,
Yeah.
they were always like, ah, it's like fantasy mumbo jumbo or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's so much more to it than that. Again, it's the perfect like family movie because the kids love the action and Marty and Doc's funny, but the adults see such a different movie. And as I get older, I see like what my parents would have seen in the movie,
Mm.
and it's how many movies can do that?
Do you know why your parents liked the movie? Like, did they ever say why
I mean, I know they
specifically?
thought it was funny. I don't know if they
Mm.
ever. I'm sure they felt similar to how I feel about certain things, but they never really expressed it. We just all
Mm.
enjoyed the movie like together as a family. But it's one of those movies where you think about things like I think everybody thinks about their own family and their own life and what would my dad be like if I saw him in high school? Like, I just think it has all those human questions.
It, it's kind of funny when you said you were talking about how Bob Gale got the idea, because I actually had something kind of similar happen. We'd went through a bunch of old yearbooks that my mom had found, like we were cleaning out the basement probably 15, 20 years ago, because I think I was still in high school, and we're going through them, and I didn't know my mom had my dad's yearbooks back there. I thought we were just going through my mom's yearbooks. And the one we were going through happened to be my dad. And I'm looking at the football team and I'm like, oh my God, who is that guy? Like, this is one of the
Yeah.
best looking men I've ever seen. And my mom just starts laughing. And I'm like, who is it? Because I'm thinking it's her yearbook. And my parents are 8 years apart. So they never would
Yeah.
have overlapped in high school. And I'm like, who is it? She's like, it's your dad. And I'm like, oh, like what?
Yeah.
Because my dad looks so different now than when he was a kid. I was like, I didn't think my dad was like a good looking dude. Like,
Well,
what?
it's like every once in a while I'll see an old picture of my dad will show up.
Uh huh.
And he was like a teenager in the 70s, and he's got long hair, and he looks like, I'm like,
It's
are you a hippie?
crazy.
Like, my dad is like the tough guy now, but it's like you would probably be like a weird little hippie freak. Like, if I went back to him in high school, I'd probably be like, this is not my dad. There's no way.
I,
you know?
I've thought about that a lot. Like, when do we go from our high school selves to our adult
I know.
self? Like, it's kind of like the world just kind of hits everyone at a different
Well,
time,
especially
and
for
you
their
just,
generation,
yeah,
like the 50s to the 60s, the 60s to the 70s, like it was a huge jump every 10 years. But
yeah.
when I think back about 20, almost 20 years of my high school grad, I'm like, it hasn't changed like at all. Like 2005 to now, well, we have smartphones and the internet is like, things got worse, but like you watch a movie from '05, you don't go, oh my God, this seems so long ago. You're just like, the
Yeah.
cars are a little bit older. But think about 20 years from the 70s, the 50s, whole different world. People dress
Mhm.
differently. Like, it's crazy. That's why Back to the Future will
Yeah.
never work again. You can't do, oh, I'm going back 30 years to the 90s. Okay? There's going to be CDs and, I don't know. Like, not much has changed.
I kind of think our next big jump might be coming though. And I don't know if you see them much in San Diego. I don't see it at all, like where I live in Oregon. But even when you and I went to LA to go see a classmate of ours last summer, seeing the like DoorDash robots, like
Yeah,
that
I
was,
I saw them when I was in LA in
yeah.
August. I have not
Oh,
seen them in San Diego. Maybe downtown. I don't go downtown too much, but where
mm,
I am, like in Alpine, where I grew up, this place
mhm.
has not changed at all. Probably
Yeah.
similar to where you live too. It's just like old country, quiet.
We have a movie theater now.
Population went up a little bit. We do not. We do not
Yeah.
have a
Oh,
movie
yeah,
theater.
you don't, do you? Which is crazy. Uh, yeah, and even my friends that live in like Austin, Texas, seeing them in the, I think they're called like Waymo, the like driverless vehicles. I think,
Yeah, saw one of those in LA too. It's weird.
yeah, it's weird. Yeah. So I
Just
think that's kind
it's
of our
city
next
stuff.
big,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I'm already seeing you can buy a robot that does chores around the house.
Do you ever think like I was kind of thinking about this, like, are we gonna have like a C3PO? Like, is
That's
that
what it is.
what like, 'cause that's what it feels like. But I hope they're as cool as three
And then
CPO.
people are gonna fall in love with them.
I,
I bet they'll start killing people. There'll be like a whole what do we do about that?
yeah.
This robot like accidentally or purposely stabbed my dad or whatever. Like, you know,
Cooking.
yeah.
Cooking on the, so I mean maybe in the next like 10 years we could have another similar, the time
You have
before
to let that
robots.
world exist for a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Where that's
Hmm.
the norm, and then yeah, go back to when you didn't have robots driving self-driving cars and stuff. So
Cars.
yeah, I
Yeah.
guess I see what you're saying.
Well, even and it's so crazy because I remember I was in driver's ed around 2011 or 12 maybe. I was supposed to get my driver's license.
That made me feel so old.
Yeah, I know. I was supposed to get my driver's license. My dad calls and decides I'm too ditzy to get my driver's license. And so he wants me to take driver's ed because he doesn't think I like pay attention, apparently. And so I take driver's ed and are driving because you had class one day a week and then you drove one day a week. You drove for 2 hours, you drove for an hour, and you observed for an hour. And our driving teacher's name was Bingo. And he kind of reminds me of Doc in a weird way, just like a cool gray haired, crazy dude. And he would talk about, yeah, in the next 50 years we're going to have driverless cars, and he's like, it's going to be to the point where you have a movie screen, so when you're in the car you can just watch a movie and the car's driving.
Yeah.
And he's like, we'll probably be going like 200 miles an hour because at that point everything will be GPS, so everything just, and I remember I'm like, I think this guy has lost it. Like, I think he needs
Well,
help.
did we
And
do a
now,
Minority Report episode? We did, right?
yes, we sure did. We sure did.
Because that movie takes place in 2040 something,
That's
and I
good.
think they got it. They used like real, like future tech, like guys who study the future and stuff. But if
Mm,
you remember that movie, everyone has like there's like a freeway grid where you only have automated cars and you kind of just sit, people are sitting and talking while it takes you and it's going like really fast. And
yeah.
then
Mhm.
it looked like there was also cars for the side roads, but it looked like a huge, and then there's even one that brings him right up to his apartment, if you
Mhm.
remember that in the beginning.
I do, yeah.
And what's funny is there's still people reading newspapers, but the newspapers move. It's like they didn't think that we would have a computer in our hand 24/7 that did
Mhm.
everything. But I think other than that, the retina scanners and like the cars and the automated freeway system and the advertisements that are customized to you, I think that's already a thing
Yeah.
just on Instagram and all that. But I think they got a lot of
Wow.
it. I mean, we're only 20 years away now from that reality, and it looks like we're gonna hit it. Like that will be the norm, I think, in 20 years.
Well, when I was at the Houston airport, I think 4 or 5 years ago, they were already starting the retina, like, eye scans, and
Yeah,
literally,
China does it already. China
I
does it.
said, "I've seen Minority Report, I ain't doing this."
It's
Like,
creepy like that.
it's
You know,
creepy.
when I was a kid, I was like, "Oh, this is cool." And now you're like, "Oh my god!" Like it's so diabolical.
Yeah, because that would almost have to be our next Back to the Future, would have to be, like, Minority
Yeah,
Report coming
yeah,
back
exactly. That's
to
the normal world, and then they go to the 2000s or whatever.
2015 or,
Yeah,
whatever.
you don't have a robot that like does your laundry. What are you talking about?
Or just like them sitting in a car and waiting for it to drive itself. And then it's like,
The guy doesn't know how
you
to drive.
have to put the key in, you gotta turn it. Or so I was actually thinking, I'm a country music nerd, and there's a song called Austin by Blake Shelton, and it came out in maybe 2001. And it's talking about the answering machine. So kind of the punchline of the song is him and this girl, her name is Austin, have been broke up for it seems like several years in the song, and she calls him one day, and he's like, if you're calling about the car, I sold it. If this is Tuesday night, I'm bowling, I'm headed out to the lake, and I'll be gone all weekend long, and I'll call you back on Sunday afternoon, but PS, if this is Austin, I still love you. And I was thinking about that song because, I mean, it was huge. I mean, that's what put Blake Shelton on the map. I grew up with the song. I love the song. I've seen Blake Shelton in concert multiple times. I actually saw him in LA in like a private room. And I got to thinking, like, this is one of my favorite songs. My kids are probably not going to know what he's talking about the answering machine, and like how you had to record. I mean, my kids, I'll probably have to explain it to them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think what's maybe we'll leave with this about Back to
Yeah.
the Future. New generations pick up on this movie, and it's in the 80s, which when it came out was the time. But now you look and you're like, he's got a clock radio. Doesn't have a cell phone. He's riding a skateboard around. And also, I guess Stranger Things kind of brought the 80s back for the new generation. So maybe the 80s
Yeah.
is cool. Like, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know. Maybe we'll see like a push for return of some kind of analog stuff, just aesthetically. I mean, I love watching old movies and seeing like a big like tape deck where there's buttons that clunk in, or like 'cause that's what I grew up with. My dad had this big stereo, and everything was like metal clank clank clank, tapes going in and stuff. And now it's just like, oh man, I'm just sending a signal to my speaker to play music.
It's kind
Not
of
as sexy like for in a movie, because
uh
someone busts out a CD or a tape or a record. Now it's just like music plays. It's just not as
I think you have a point though, because look at how many like artists, like mainstream pop artists, are releasing records though.
Yeah, and,
When
and even
yeah,
film is still a lot. There's a little bit of a comeback for shooting on film. Only
Mhm.
certain directors have the luxury of using it, but it is cool that they're still able to shoot on film for some movies, because if everything is just digital, then everything is the same. And the same gets old.
I think there is a call to return back to more of the physical world and get off the
I think there
digital
is.
world.
I think,
Yeah, I think we're seeing it.
yeah. I'm a physical media collector. I like having my movies displayed, and I like to see them and touch them, and But I get there's people that aren't as into it as I am and don't mind just pressing a button, watching whatever. But I feel like I'm just holding on to that last piece of my childhood, was getting a DVD and opening it and having it in there, and looking at it and stuff. I don't know. I only do it with movies, because music I'm fine with just playing on my phone. I have to have like some modern for something, but for movies I like to own them.
Mhm. I would like to get a record player and have it just like for certain things, just because I love the aesthetic. I think it's cool, but I mean, with being in the vehicle, it's so nice to have. It is.
Oh
I
yeah,
enjoy
I mean,
having all my
I
music
listen to
on
my
there.
music in the car. That's where I
Yeah.
listen to music.
Hmm.
And Spotify is great. Wireless Apple CarPlay, like I love that technology, because back in the day I had a book of CDs. I had 10 CDs. I would just, okay, this one again. It is nice to have a huge library and it just plays. Like I'm not that into my music.
Yeah. Well, to wrap up today, do you have any final thoughts about Back to the Future or?
I mean, it's one of those movies that just not only stays great, it gets better with age, and with just how bad movies are now. It's great to come back to it. I think any chance you get to see it on the big screen with an audience, you should absolutely take it. It seems like every 5 years they kind of put it back in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, if you have time, I think it's in IMAX until Wednesday. So today, tomorrow, maybe Thursday it'll be in there.
I think when I
And
looked
it's
for the
playing in regular theaters too. You don't. It's not just IMAX. I saw that it
yeah.
had some regular showings, but you should. And it'll probably linger on past that in smaller theaters. But you should see it on the big screen, whether you haven't seen it ever, and this is like, oh, maybe this is the time I'll go see it, or you haven't seen it in a while, or it's one of your favorite movies. I think you should go revisit it in the theater. I think it's always cool, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like going back to the future yourself to see
Mm-hmm.
an '80s movie in the big screen. It's just you
Mm-hmm.
can't beat that. So
No, no, for sure. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talk. I know
thank
we
you
kind
for
of just
having me.
impromptu yesterday. I'm like, we got to do it. So thank you so much. And I always love talking movies with you. So thank you for
Yeah,
being here and
anytime.
giving us some fun facts about Back to the Future.